So, hello everyone, and welcome back. Again, my name is Anna Greer, and today I'm delighted to have with me Rebekkah LaDyne. Now, Rebekkah brings over 20 years of teaching experience and more than 15 years of client experience to her work, and she shares mind-body wellness and somatic integration that truly changes lives. She has done so much that I could talk about her for about 5 minutes, but she's a committed lifelong learner, and she works with mind body medicine. She works with the Somatic Experiencing Institute, and she now assists somatic therapy training through that institute. So, a lot of experience, insight, and wisdom here. Rebekkah, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with you.
It's really wonderful to have you. Rebekkah, I'd love you to give the audience a little bit of an idea about your framing of the body when it's in fatigue. What is it that's going on there?
Mm-hmm. I was giving some thought to this before we began to speak today, and I wanted to describe 3 different ways that the nervous system can find itself in fatigue. So just to create some common language, this nervous system that is our energy center, but it's also our felt sense of well-being. It's the way that we experience ourselves in the world and the world around us. Has these modes. So sympathetic activation, but let's call that gas or get up and go. You would say petrol, probably in the UK. And parasympathetic activation, let's call that the break or the rest, or the below rest, which is a fear state we could call freeze. Okay. So we have get up and go, which can also turn into fight flight. We have rest and digest, which can also turn into freeze or even shut down if the system is really overwhelmed. And in the experience of fatigue, I've worked with clients who have all 3 of the experiences that I'm about to describe. So a person can have, and I think the most common that I've seen in fatigue is simultaneous gas and brake, simultaneous go and stop living inside the system over decades. We call that sometimes in somatic therapy functional freeze. And so it's a person who's quite able to do their day, but is exhausted either after the day's work is done or underneath that functioning. And underneath that exhaustion, there's a tremendous amount of fear and reactivity, or kind of bracing, worrying, clenching. And so with this simultaneous gas break, both systems are depleted to the point where often functional freeze can persist for quite a while in folks, but at some point it gives out and gives way to just freeze, lack of functionality. And I've seen folks that need to rest for most hours of the day. And sometimes that can persist for a few years. Sometimes it persists for 6 months or something like this. But it's the system saying, we can no longer expend this much energy on all go and all stop, or fight, flight, and freeze, shut down simultaneously.
Yeah.
So that's one. But it's the most common variety in my experience, but there are these 2 other varieties, which is for a person who had early life experiences that were consistently overwhelming, that were consistently startling to the nervous system or scary. They could be in a prolonged freeze shutdown that can last decades and not feel much get up and go at all, not feel much aliveness, engagement, cognitive functioning, and be in much more of a persistent parasympathetic where there's just very little access to functionality. And so that person would hear my first description and say, I don't have any get up and go at all. So that's likely when the system has had to adapt to such chronic overwhelm that shutting down was the best option. that it was the right thing to do to get through those circumstances. But when that person comes into adulthood and hopefully there's not persistent overwhelm, that survival strategy is no longer helpful. And so that fatigue is interrupting their life instead of saving their life. The third is something more common, and I think of it more as short-term fatigue syndrome, where we live our 21st century go, 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 go lifestyle, all sympathetic all the time for years on end. And we just run out. We just run out. And the pushing strategies that we have, whether it's a stress pushing strategy, a deadline pushing strategy, an achievement pushing strategy, maybe it's coffee, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's stronger drugs, maybe it's just the belief that everyone else is keeping up this pace. It gives way because that pace really isn't workable long-term. You and I were just discussing before we recorded that the pandemic taught us this wonderful lesson, gave us this experience of calm that probably humans just need. And a pandemic had to come along to tell many of us that a much slower lifestyle actually felt very good and very balanced in a way that we probably had lost touch with.
Yeah.
So
And
that
it seems that fatigue is giving us the same message, isn't it? In that
exactly.
third category, very clearly. But actually relating to your second category as well, the overwhelm and trauma, increasingly you're seeing meta trauma in the kind of conditions in which we live. So we're getting it from kind of two angles there.
That's right, because we can have experienced overwhelm in our local environment, whether it was home or school or neighborhood as a child, but there's certainly overwhelm available, we could say, or all around us, we could say, in today's modern world.
Yeah.
So that experience, like you're saying, of too much, pretty much everywhere you can look, really overwhelms many people's systems, even if they don't have early developmental experiences of overwhelm. What I see is that folks that have early experiences of overwhelm are just much more sensitive, much more aware of, feel, hear, taste, smell the overwhelm that is happening in our environment. That really just is happening. It just is. It's not like, well, some people are impacted by it and some aren't. It's really that we're all impacted by it, but some systems are just truly more porous in a beautiful way, because this gives them the ability to feel life and feel their experiences more deeply than the folks that maybe can survive the too much that's happening all around, but are actually missing quite a bit of the subtlety that is also happening. That's not the too much. So I think of it as body communication in a very beautiful way, but I also think of it as an acknowledgement of that person's capacity to notice, that person's capacity to feel life. And so there's a really good part of the body sending the message. Instead of sending the message, hey, this is too much, what if the message was, hey, you're really good at feeling what's happening?
Yeah. Now, how do you work with that capacity, that gift, that skill in people to bring them into healing states through your work?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that bodily awareness and interoception is a very important part of what you do.
Exactly. So interoception, the awareness of our felt experience, is essential in somatic therapy. It's what we sometimes call that bottom-up modality rather than top-down. And the theory really expresses that we can't think our way to feeling better exclusively. Thoughts are great. Thoughts are helpful. We're thinking right now, but we also need to feel our way to feeling better. So communicating between the body mind becomes the lifeblood, the nourishing force of somatic therapy. And what that means is learning to listen to the wisdom of a sensitive nervous system, listen to the fatigue, listen to the subtler and digestible levels of engagement, and befriend them. And then also really take notice of the unsubtle, the too much levels of engagement, which would then translate to fatigue or overwhelm, and befriend the knowing of that, to get to know and understand Yes. In some circumstances, it's for a person, it's just coming to understand, I have a really sensitive system. I'm good at feeling what's happening around me, whether it's sights, sounds, or sensations. And it's very general. I'm just a person who notices a lot bodily. And for others, it's really refining the lens, coming to understand, what is it that is happening in my environment that is communicating to my body that all is not well, that is sending me into sympathetic activation, or that go, 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 fight, flight, or sending me into parasympathetic, that freeze, shut down. What are the triggers that are taking place? And so in somatic therapy, we come to understand on a bodily level, what does the body know about your early life? Sometimes narrative comes with that, and sometimes it's much more of a felt experience.
Yeah.
It's not about recounting a particular decade of one's life, or finding a through line that has a logical beginning, middle, and end. The body tells stories about what is still being carried by the body. And these are the stories that are, in my opinion, really asking to be understood, asking to be processed and healed when the messages of fatigue are coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is deeply pre-conscious, isn't it? I mean, the body and the unconscious are so strongly interwoven. I mean, I often think of the body as the unconscious in an important sense.
Well, that's really true. I just want to say, in the cousin to interoception, which is the felt experience of me, is neuroception, which was a phrase coined by Stephen Porges, who's a researcher, kind of founding father of somatic experiencing, somatic therapy. And he's really using neuroception to talk about all of the ways that our nervous system is taking in information from our experience. So it really is that bodily experience, but it's that pre-conscious, I'm hearing, seeing, feeling, emotionally noting what's happening right now. And all of that impacts our nervous system. And a sensitive nervous system, if there's something in the noting that is scary, something in the noting that is irritating, something in the noting that feels a little suspicious, that nervous system could go into a high reactivity state and become exhausted, or a freeze, shutdown response, and feel an inability to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's fascinating me listening to you, it's obviously the kind of architecture of this. There's a commonality, but there's also a lot of unique reflections of people's own developmental stories, their own environmental, dynamics and all the rest of it. But putting all that to one side, just kind of accept it. If we accepted and if we put the autobiography aside, there's something about the sensitivity of some people's nervous systems, which is saying something to the people who are not fully cognizant or aware yet of their nervous systems, because it's not as if their nervous systems are immune from these influences. It's just that they don't notice, and their body hasn't got to the point, maybe through the lack of the same autobiography, hasn't got to the point of that breakdown, that sensitivity, that level of attunement. So there's something really amazingly gifted here for the collective, isn't there?
Absolutely. And that's why I think this person, we could call them the canary in the coal mine, but this person is a teacher. This person has the ability to help folks not just recognize what is too much in the environment, but to live into life with more knowing of one's life experiences. And that's a gift. So rather than condemning a person who experiences what we would call fatigue, what if we honor and appreciate people who are most aware of what it is that is happening in the here and now?
Absolutely. And it reminds me, I think this is true of some shamanistic cultures, where if someone goes into a breakdown state and say they're having what we would think of in the West as psychotic episodes, they're put aside and honored and cared for. And then they integrate at a higher level of evolutionary functioning in their own system. And they come out and they're honored for that. And I think there's a lovely parallel here for people with fatigue We're doing such deep journeying, such deep journeying. And it is a deep journeying that speaks to us all.
Yes.
And so it is beautiful to think of people with fatigue as teachers.
Yes.
And some of them might feel that they're teachers in waiting if they're bedbound, but they're still teachers. They're still walking a deep path.
You could be teaching the one friend who calls you once a week and says, how is it? Who's still perhaps revving too high, going too fast too often, or not even to condemn that person, but just to say, you could be teaching your family members who know that you are taking a year of rest. It doesn't have to be on a big stage in front of lots and lots of people, but the shamanistic version that you just described would, I think, parallel to what we now call post-traumatic growth.
Yes.
And the experience of who a person is after they've healed what the body is asking for attention to is really beautiful and tremendous. It's all of my clients have talked about feeling more like themselves than they were before this breakdown happened. There's usually a person who's been living their life for some years, going at a fast clip, achieving a lot of things, and along comes fatigue, suddenly, inexplicably, in many people's cases. And they think, oh no, what have I done wrong? Or why is this happening? Or how do I get it to go away? And once the healing process begins, and there's hopefully a reorganization of lifestyle and mind and heart around, who am I? What is my body explaining to me? What is my body asking from me? There's an experience of post-traumatic growth. I am more myself than I was when I was running around thinking that I was a great success. So I hope that we can change the idea around what fatigue is telling us and what healing from fatigue looks like. It might still look like having what some would call a slower lifestyle, but perhaps what you and I would call a balanced lifestyle. You know, maybe the pandemic taught us that.
Yes, absolutely. And then there's that whole thing about peri-traumatic growth, the growth that actually occurs in the midst of it. Because I know for myself on my own journey, there was a hell of a lot of change and shift and evolution taking place when I was still chronically ill. And it wasn't an afterwards. I couldn't possibly have called it an afterwards. Yeah. But yet, there was something unfolding as I went deeper into these layers.
I really love that. You know, I don't hear that term used very often. And I think it's so important to name that post isn't a very accurate word, because in my opinion, there is no after. Yeah. This is a life's work. This is a journey that we get to take because our body knocked on the door of our heart and said, guess what? There are some things that need to be processed and healed. And so I would say, let's use peri instead of post. But in addition to that, let's make sure that we're describing every self-knowing and easeful moment in the process of healing that occurs is what I mean when I say post, which is a bad word. So I'm going to say peri. Every small, I don't even want to say plateau, it's too significant, but Peter Levine beautifully describes these as islands of safety. We're swimming out in stormy waters and being hit by waves. Not sure if we can make it to shore. Let's not make the shore our goal. Let's find just an island that is safe enough to rest on and catch our breath.
Or even a current to just relax and float along with.
Isn't that nice? Just to float on your back for a while. Look up at the moon and know that it's okay. Absolutely.
Because everything that I'm hearing you say is a couple of things that are really beautiful, like underlying notes that are resonating for me in what you're saying. One is this beautiful word that you used a couple of times in the beginning of befriending. That was really beautiful. And then this sense of slow down, drop in.
Yes.
These two things, I'd love you to expand on them.
Oh my gosh, yes. This befriending for me is central in healing, in the work that I do, the way that I approach how our body responds to our lived experiences. Whether it's early experiences or adult experiences, people develop fatigue in adulthood all the time that didn't have notable early life trauma. So I think many people feel upset or angry or betrayed by their body, their nervous system, their ability to go, 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 when the body demands that they not at the pace that they think they should, or that they did, or that they want to. It could be fantasy. And I think the way that our cultures can impose on us that the better way is more and faster can lead to, I think the opposite of befriending is to make oneself an enemy. Mm-hmm. In the worst cases, it's to hate one's fatigue or the part of oneself that demands rest. Mm. And I think that in that case, when I've seen that happen, it always makes it worse because the system is trying to help you. The system has only your best experiences at heart, befriending the messages, befriending the requests or demands, let's be honest, sometimes they're demands from the body, is what I think was often missing in whatever period of your life you began to feel that you weren't enough. Mm. At some point, you were being told to do more, or that you weren't possibly doing enough, even if you were already doing a bunch. And that rejection of you or condemnation of your person in some way, those are so broad, it can take many, many forms, but in some way there was a, this isn't okay. This isn't okay. And returning to relationship with self, I really just think it has to be there in order to heal, really heal from the fatigue, which is just a call for help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the slowing down and dropping in part for me, listening to you, is about the kind of attunement that a really gifted parent would give to a little baby, right? Because, you said quite a lot of people don't have like a notable trauma. Mm-hmm. My sense is we all carry unconscious attachment traumas, as even if it's not a big T trauma, but even the most attuned parent's going to get it wrong sometimes, and the nervous system's going to go, well, not safe, and develop strategies that, as you said, when you're an adult, no longer serve you.
Right.
But there is something here, I think, about the dropping in and the really sensing is like the perfect gaze of the most attentive,
exactly,
almost fantasy level, good, attuned adult carer, right, for a child.
Self-attunement is what, if we boil it down to what's the body asking for, it's asking for self-attunement. A fatigued body is saying, I have some things I need you to notice. Can you please turn toward me and listen?
And self-attunement is so powerful.
Amazing.
And I think a lot of people who, particularly when you're bedbound and you're in that state where you're having to rest all the time, I think a lot of people suffering from ME, CFS related conditions would say they are collapsed, but at the same time, there's something racing inside.
That's the functional freeze. And so that is the freeze state, scratch functional. There's a misnomer sometimes, so I just want to clarify that freeze is just a blankness. That the distinction is that is more of a shutdown state. That is a dissociative state where you are just not able to respond to your environment. The freeze is the utter stillness, bedbound stillness that is racing underneath. Yeah. And that is so stressful for the body to So, the animal brain is like, I need to get away, but it is not safe. So I will hold myself as still as possible, bind myself here, and hope I'm not noticed. But my fear reactivity is still sky high. I'm in the highest alert and in the perception of threat. And that's where we can get into what is it that your body is perceiving as a threat? And it doesn't have to be anything very direct. It can be on a much larger scale, as you're saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this
I'm
is
glad.
really.
I really wanted to get to that because I know that a lot of clients will say they're tired and wired. So they've got both going on. And I know from my own experience, when I was really, really bedbound, I had this tube of tension through the center of my body. I could never turn it off.
Right.
And it took me years to access it. And I had to access it somatically. I'm a very experienced meditator. Even deep meditation didn't get it.
I've seen that again and again.
Yeah, in the end, I had to go for somatic things. So I used the safe and sound protocol to adjust the vagus.
Good.
It brings social engagement, but also a device that put rhythm through my body through sound pulsing.
Great.
And that was a turning point, and it was all purely somatic.
So that's really important because the way that the body needs to experience safety is very unique to each of us. And it can't be thought through. I want to comment that on your meditative experience, I write about in my book, The Mind Body Stress Reset, that for many people who experience body stress, body overwhelm, meditation actually doesn't resolve it. And I really pointed out because there's so much information, incorrect information out there, that if you just meditate, you will resolve it. And meditation is actually highly cognitive. Of course, there's a somatic component to it, but you're calming the mind, which can be tremendous and wonderful. So, all of you meditators, enjoy, do this whenever it suits you and serves you. But if you're using meditation to heal what is very much the body, a bodily injury or somatic experience, use somatic approaches, use vagal method approaches, so a few that I write about in the book that are easily accessible are breathing. Rhythmical breathing is available to each of us. And every time we exhale, we're going into that parasympathetic, soothing the vagus. Every time we inhale, it's like a little massage for the vagus nerve. Other approaches that are really easy are movement, just little movement, tipping the head to one side. Vagus runs, from the brainstem, down the neck, clusters around the heart, down the torso, clusters in the guts. So your experience of this tube you describe, my brain says, oh, vagal injury. Okay, the vagus nerve, which is our resting safety connection nerve, wasn't getting what it needed, wasn't able to access, didn't have inputs saying, you can rest, you can connect to safety. There are people here you can trust. So using movement, using breath, using song, right? Singing is massaging the vagus nerve. And then we get into the ways that we can use imagery, because you're talking about self-attunement. And in my book, I have a whole chapter on imagery that really lets us create it starts perhaps in the mind, we could say, but imagery is this incredible way to communicate with the body. It's like a direct connection to the body to create. Some people call it the idealized parent figure. Some people call it, just Gandalf the Grey. Some people call it this experience of a being. I loved when you said the ultimate gaze, a being that sees me and enjoys me for what I call my suchness, enjoys me for just existing. Using imagery to create internal attunement is so important as a part, I think, of the healing of fatigue.
Yeah, and it's profoundly solid neuroscience, isn't it? The visual cortex has incredible access to the whole.
I cite all kinds of articles. It's wonderfully proven, wonderfully demonstrated that imagery is an exceptional way to target our nervous system and to soothe really our body-mind system.
Absolutely brilliant. And it's been fantastic to hear from you and talk with you, Rebekkah. I think there's some really practical things that people can really grab hold of there. The idea of befriending, self-attunement, slowing down, dropping in, using imagery. There's just so much. It's been so rich. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad to be here.